Amanda walked through the crystal corridors of the palace with her hands clasped behind her back and her mind racing with thoughts about everything that had happened in the past month. The walls glowed softly with blue light that seemed to come from within the crystal itself, and she could hear the distant sounds of Zarian voices echoing through the massive structure. She had been living in the palace as a guest of Queen Jara, and every day brought new surprises and new challenges that tested everything she thought she knew about the universe. The other members of her crew had returned to Earth 2 weeks ago to report on the successful first contact and to bring back the shocking news about the prophecy and the genetic markers. Amanda had chosen to stay behind, and the decision still felt both terrifying and absolutely right. Her quarters in the palace were larger than her entire apartment back on Earth, and decorated with strange, beautiful objects that the Zarian had given her as welcome gifts. There was a viewing wall that could show any location on the planet, and Amanda often spent her evenings watching the purple deserts and silver oceans of this alien world. Jara had assigned her a cultural advisor named Kira, who was helping Amanda learn the Zarian language and customs. Kira was shorter than most Zarians at only 7 feet tall, and her skin stayed a steady shade of calm green, which Amanda had learned meant contentment and peace. Kira explained that most Zarians could not control their skin colors because the changes were tied directly to their emotions, but members of the Royal Guard and advisors went through special training to maintain neutral colors in public. Amanda found the language lessons challenging because Zarian had sounds that human vocal cords were not designed to make. She practiced every day and could now hold basic conversations, but her accent made Zarian children giggle when they heard her speak. Jara said the accent was charming, and that Amanda should not worry about perfect pronunciation, because the effort to learn was what mattered most to the Zarian people. The Queen had introduced Amanda to the Royal Council 3 days after the initial meeting, and that experience had been even more nerve-wracking than meeting Jara herself. The council consisted of 12 elder Zarians who advised the Queen on matters of state, and they all had skin that shifted through deep shades of purple and blue, indicating wisdom and age. They had questioned Amanda for hours about human culture and technology and government, and Amanda had answered as honestly as she could while being careful not to reveal anything that might be used as a military advantage. The council members had been particularly interested in human emotions and family structures. Zarians formed family groups differently than humans, with multiple adults raising children together in community houses, and the concept of a nuclear family with just 2 parents seemed strange to them. Amanda had explained that humans had many different family structures, and that Earth was home to diverse cultures with varying traditions. This seemed to please the council, and they had voted unanimously to support Queen Jara's decision to pursue a formal alliance with Earth. Amanda turned a corner in the corridor and found herself in the garden courtyard that had become her favorite place in the palace. The garden was enclosed by 4 walls but open to the orange sky above and filled with plants that came in colors Amanda had never seen before. There were trees with silver leaves that chimed like bells when the wind blew through them, and flowers that released glowing pollen into the air at sunset. A small stream ran through the center of the garden with water that was perfectly clear and tasted slightly sweet when Amanda had tried drinking. Jara was already in the garden, sitting on a bench, made of white stone and looking up at the sky. Her skin was a soft shade of gold that Amanda had learned indicated happiness, and her crown was absent, which meant this was meant to be an informal meeting. Amanda walked over and sat down beside the Queen, leaving a respectful distance between them as Kira had taught her was proper. Jara turned to look at Amanda and smiled, showing those slightly pointed teeth that no longer seemed strange at all. She said that she had received a message from Earth, and that Amanda's government wanted to send a diplomatic team to Zarion to begin formal negotiations for trade and cultural exchange. Amanda felt her heart skip a beat because this meant her decision to stay had resulted in real progress toward an alliance between their species. The Queen continued, explaining that she had invited the human diplomats to visit in 3 months, which would give Amanda time to prepare briefing materials and help the Zarian court understand what to expect from human negotiators. Jara said she was counting on Amanda to act as a bridge between their peoples and to help prevent misunderstandings that could damage the fragile connection they were building. Amanda agreed without hesitation and asked what she could do to prepare. Jara said that first Amanda needed to understand more about Zarion history and the role of the royal family in their society. She explained that Zarians had not always been united under a single queen, but had once been divided into warring clans that fought over territory and resources. The first queen had united the clans 5,000 years ago through a combination of military strength and diplomatic marriages, and had established the tradition of rule by a single female monarch. The throne passed from queen to daughter in an unbroken line, and Jara was the 300th queen in that line. She had no children yet, and this was a source of quiet concern among the council members who worried about succession. Zarians lived much longer than humans, with an average lifespan of about 300 years, and Jara was only 60 years old, which was considered young for a queen. But the council felt that she should begin thinking about producing an heir to secure the stability of the realm. Amanda listened carefully and wondered why Jara was telling her all of this personal information. The queen seemed to sense her confusion and explained that the prophecy about the marked human was connected to the royal bloodline. According to ancient texts, the marked human would help ensure the continuation of the royal line through means that the prophecy did not specify clearly. Some scholars interpreted this to mean that the marked human would protect the queen and her future children, while others thought it meant something more direct and biological. Jara said that she did not know exactly what the prophecy meant, but that she felt a connection to Amanda that went beyond politics or duty. She said that from the moment she saw Amanda standing in the throne room, she had felt recognition, like meeting someone important who had been missing from her life. Amanda admitted that she felt something similar, and that staying on Zarion had felt like coming home, even though everything here was strange and alien. They sat together in silence for a while, watching the silver leaves chime in the breeze and the glowing pollen drift through the air. Amanda thought about her old life on Earth and her job as a diplomat and her small apartment in the city. That life seemed distant now, like a dream she had woken up from. Here on Zarion, she felt more alive and more purposeful than she ever had before. Jara finally stood up and extended her hand to Amanda, offering to show her something special. Amanda took the queen's hand and was surprised by how warm and soft it felt, despite the alien texture of the skin. Jara led her through the garden to a door Amanda had never noticed before, hidden behind a curtain of hanging vines with purple flowers. The door opened into a stairway that spiraled down into darkness, lit only by small crystals embedded in the walls. They descended for what felt like several minutes until they reached a chamber deep beneath the palace. The chamber was circular, and the walls were covered in ancient writing that glowed with pale blue light. In the center of the chamber stood a statue carved from black stone, showing two figures standing side by side. One figure was clearly Zarion, with the characteristic tall frame and large eyes. The other figure was smaller and had proportions that looked distinctly human. Jara explained that this chamber had been sealed for thousands of years and opened only when she became queen. The statue was created by the Ancient Ones and left as a message to future generations. The writing on the walls told the story of how the Ancient Ones had visited both Earth and Zarion and planted seeds that would one day bring the two species together. Amanda stared at the human figure in the statue and felt a chill run down her spine. The prophecy was real, and she was standing in the proof of it. Amanda spent the next several weeks studying the ancient texts in the underground chamber with Jara and a team of Zarian scholars who specialized in the history of the Ancient Ones. The writing on the walls was in a language that predated both human and Zarian civilizations, and could only be partially translated using fragments of similar texts found in ruins across the planet. The scholars worked carefully, making copies of the glowing symbols and comparing them to their existing database of ancient writings. What they discovered was both exciting and troubling. The Ancient Ones had apparently visited dozens of worlds throughout the galaxy and left genetic modifications in selected populations on each planet. The purpose of these modifications was unclear, but the texts suggested that the Ancient Ones were preparing different species for an eventual meeting and merger. The word used in the text could be translated as merger or joining or union, and the scholars debated endlessly about which translation was most accurate. Amanda found herself thinking about the implications during her daily walks through the palace gardens. If the Ancient Ones had engineered multiple species to be compatible, then there might be others out there in the galaxy waiting to meet, just as she and Jara had met. The universe suddenly seemed much less empty and much more deliberately designed than she had ever imagined. She wondered if the Ancient Ones were still watching from somewhere, or if they had disappeared long ago, leaving their experiment to unfold without supervision. Jara seemed equally fascinated by the discoveries and spent hours discussing theories with Amanda over evening meals in the private dining room. The Queen had a sharp mind and asked questions that pushed Amanda to think more deeply about what they were learning. They talked about philosophy and evolution and the nature of consciousness while eating dishes made from ingredients that Amanda was still learning to identify. Some Zarion foods were delicious, and others made her stomach turn, but she tried everything at least once to be polite. The relationship between Amanda and Jara was growing deeper and more complex with each passing day. They had moved beyond formal politeness into genuine friendship, and sometimes Amanda caught herself staring at the Queen and feeling emotions she could not quite name. Jara seemed to notice these moments, and her skin would shift to a warm rose color that Kira had quietly told Amanda indicated affection and attraction. Amanda was not sure how to handle this development because human diplomatic protocols definitely did not cover falling for an alien queen. Kira had become a trusted friend and confidant during this time. She had a dry sense of humor that reminded Amanda of her best friend back on Earth, and she was patient when Amanda asked awkward questions about Zarian biology and culture. One evening, Kira invited Amanda to her home in the city, beyond the palace walls, and Amanda eagerly accepted, wanting to see how ordinary Zarians lived their daily lives. Kira's home was part of a community complex where 12 families shared common spaces and raised their children together. The building was made of the same purple crystal as the palace, but on a smaller scale, and the rooms were cozy and filled with personal items. Kira introduced Amanda to her family group, which included 3 other adults and 5 children ranging in age from toddlers to teenagers. The children were shy at first, but soon warmed up to Amanda and asked her hundreds of questions about Earth and humans. Amanda learned that Zarion children were taught about the prophecy of the marked human in school as part of their history lessons. Most Zarians had assumed the prophecy was symbolic rather than literal, and the news that a real human matching the ancient description had arrived was causing excitement throughout the planet. Some Zarians were traveling from distant cities just to catch a glimpse of Amanda when she appeared in public with the Queen. This celebrity status made Amanda uncomfortable because she did not feel special or chosen in any meaningful way. She was just a person who happened to have unusual DNA and had been lucky enough to be selected for the first contact mission. But Kira explained that to Zarians, Amanda represented hope for the future and proof that the Ancient Ones had a plan for their species. The Zarians had been alone in the galaxy for thousands of years, never finding any other intelligent life, and Amanda's arrival meant they were no longer alone. The diplomatic team from Earth arrived exactly 3 months after Jara had sent the invitation, and Amanda felt nervous excitement as she waited in the landing area to greet them. The team consisted of 6 people, including a senior ambassador named Linda Chen, who had a reputation for being brilliant and tough in negotiations. Amanda had worked with Linda before and respected her skills, but worried that Linda might not understand the unique situation that had developed between Amanda and Jara. Linda stepped off the transport ship and immediately pulled Amanda into a tight hug, saying how proud Earth was of Amanda's work. The other team members included 2 cultural specialists, 1 trade negotiator, 1 military liaison, and 1 scientist who specialized in xenobiology. They all looked around at the purple sand and orange sky with expressions of wonder, and Amanda remembered feeling exactly the same way when she had first arrived. Jara greeted the diplomatic team with full formal ceremony in the throne room, wearing her crown and royal robes and surrounded by the council members. Her skin was a steady shade of royal purple, indicating dignity and authority, and she spoke in flawless English, welcoming the humans to Zarian. Linda responded with an equally formal speech, thanking Jara for the invitation and expressing Earth's desire for peaceful cooperation between their species. Amanda stood to the side during the ceremony, watching the careful diplomatic dance and feeling oddly detached from it. She had lived in this palace for months now, and had sat in the garden with Jara and explored ancient chambers and eaten strange foods and learned to speak an alien language. The formality of the ceremony felt artificial compared to the real connection she had built with the Queen. and the Zarian people. After the ceremony, Jara invited the human team to a private reception in one of the palace halls. Food and drinks were served and the atmosphere relaxed as humans and Zarians mingled and began getting to know each other. Amanda found herself pulled aside by Linda, who wanted a full briefing on everything that had happened since the first contact. They talked for over an hour in a quiet corner while Linda took detailed notes on her tablet. Amanda explained about the prophecy and the genetic markers and the underground chamber and the texts about the ancient ones. Linda listened carefully, asking sharp questions and occasionally looking skeptical, but not dismissing anything Amanda said. When Amanda finished, Linda was quiet for a long moment before saying that this situation was far more complex than anyone on Earth had realized. Linda asked directly if Amanda had developed personal feelings for Queen Jara that might interfere with her judgment. Amanda hesitated before answering because she knew Linda would report everything back to Earth Command. But she decided honesty was the best approach and admitted that yes, she cared about Jara as more than just an alien leader. She said that her feelings had not clouded her judgment but had actually helped her understand Zarian culture more deeply. Linda surprised Amanda by smiling and saying that she had suspected as much from reading Amanda's reports. She said that Earth Command was not concerned about Amanda's personal connections as long as they served the goal of building a strong alliance. In fact, Linda said some analysts thought Amanda's unique position could be valuable in the long term, especially if the prophecy really did have meaning for the future of both species. The next few weeks were filled with meetings and negotiations as the human team worked with Jara and her council to draft preliminary agreements on trade and information exchange. Amanda served as a translator and cultural advisor, helping both sides understand each other's perspectives and avoid misunderstandings. She found the work exhausting but satisfying and felt proud of the progress they were making. Jara pulled Amanda aside one evening after a particularly long negotiation session and thanked her for everything she was doing to bridge the gap between their peoples. The queen's skin was shifting through shades of gold and rose, and her large eyes held an expression that Amanda had learned to recognize as deep affection. Jara said that she could not imagine going through this process without Amanda by her side and that she hoped Amanda would consider staying on Zarion. Permanently, Amanda felt her heart race as she realized what Jara was really asking. This was not just about diplomacy or the prophecy anymore. This was personal and emotional and terrifying. Amanda said she needed time to think about such a major decision, and Jara nodded, understanding but looking disappointed. They stood together in the quiet hallway, neither quite ready to walk away, and Amanda knew that her life was about to change again in ways she could not predict. Amanda stood on the balcony of her quarters looking out over the city that sprawled beneath the palace and tried to sort through the tangle of emotions in her chest. The sun was setting, painting the orange sky in shades of deep red and purple, and the 3 moons were beginning to rise over the horizon. She had been on Zarion for almost 6 months now, and the planet had become more familiar to her than Earth in some ways. The smell of the air and the sound of Zarian voices and the sight of the purple sand all felt like home. But Jara's request that she stay permanently was forcing Amanda to confront questions she had been avoiding. What did she really want from her life, and where did she truly belong? Her career as a diplomat had been important to her on Earth, but now it felt like just a job compared to the deeper purpose she had found on Zarion. She was helping to unite 2 species and fulfill an ancient prophecy, and that felt infinitely more meaningful than any assignment she had completed before. The more complicated issue was her feelings for Jara. Amanda had tried to maintain professional boundaries, but had failed completely. She thought about the Queen constantly and felt a surge of warmth every time Jara entered a room. When they sat together in the garden or worked side by side translating ancient texts, Amanda felt a contentment she had never experienced in any previous relationship. The fact that Jara was an 8-foot-tall alien with color-changing skin and golden eyes somehow did not matter at all. Kira found Amanda on the balcony an hour later and brought her a cup of warm Zarion tea that tasted like cinnamon and honey. Kira sat down beside Amanda and they watched the city lights begin to twinkle on as darkness fell. Kira said that everyone in the palace could see what was developing between Amanda and Jara, and that the Queen's advisors were debating what it might mean for the succession and the future of the realm. Amanda asked if the Zarion people would accept a human as part of the royal family, and Kira said that opinions were divided. Some Zarians believed the prophecy meant exactly this kind of union, while others worried about the biological and cultural complications. Zarian queens had traditionally taken multiple consorts from noble families to produce heirs and ensure genetic diversity, but Jara had shown no interest in following this tradition. She had told her council repeatedly that she would choose her own path when she was ready. The council was pushing Jara to make decisions about her personal life because she was now past the age when most queens had produced at least one heir. Kira explained that Zarian reproduction was complex and required both biological compatibility and emotional bonding between partners. The emotional component was crucial because Zarian physiology responded to deep affection by triggering fertility cycles. Without genuine love or strong attachment, a Zarian female could not conceive even with a biologically compatible partner. Amanda felt her face grow warm as she realized the implications of what Kira was saying. The prophecy about the marked human helping ensure the continuation of the royal line suddenly made sense in a completely different way. The genetic modifications made by the Ancient Ones had apparently made Amanda biologically compatible with Zarians, and her emotional connection with Jara could potentially trigger the fertility cycle the council was hoping for. Kira confirmed Amanda's thoughts and said that the royal physicians had reviewed the medical scans Earth had provided and believed that reproduction between Amanda and Jara was theoretically possible. They were eager to run more detailed tests, but Jara had forbidden them from approaching Amanda because she did not want Amanda to feel pressured or used. The Queen had made it clear that whatever happened between them would be based on genuine feeling, not political necessity. Amanda appreciated Jara's consideration but felt overwhelmed by the weight of expectations from both species. Earth Command wanted her to maintain good relations with the Zarian Queen to secure the alliance, while Zarian nobility wanted her to help produce an heir to stabilize the succession. Her own feelings were mixed up with duty and prophecy and the pressure of knowing that both planets were watching to see what she would decide. She spent the next few days avoiding Jara as much as possible while she tried to figure out what she wanted. Linda noticed Amanda's distraction and called her in for a private conversation. Linda said that Earth Command had authorized her to tell Amanda something that had been kept classified until now. Scientists studying Amanda's genetic markers had discovered that the modifications made by the Ancient Ones were slowly changing her body to be more compatible with the Zarian environment and biology. Amanda felt shock wash over her as Linda explained that her cells were adapting to process Zarian food more efficiently and her respiratory system was adjusting to the slightly different atmospheric composition. The changes were subtle and not harmful, but they suggested that the Ancient Ones had designed the marked humans to be able to live permanently on Zarian if needed. Linda said that if Amanda stayed on Zarian for several more years, the changes would likely become irreversible, and she would struggle to readjust to Earth's environment. This information made Amanda's decision feel even more urgent. She was literally becoming part alien with every day she spent on this planet, and soon she would have to choose between two worlds in a much more permanent way. Linda said that Earth Command would support whatever decision Amanda made, but wanted her to be fully informed about the biological realities. Amanda thanked Linda for the information and went to find Jara. She needed to have an honest conversation with the Queen about everything, including the prophecy and the genetic changes and her own confused feelings. She found Jara in the underground chamber studying the ancient texts with two scholars. Jara looked up when Amanda entered and immediately dismissed the scholars, saying she needed privacy. They stood facing each other in the chamber, surrounded by the glowing walls and the statue of the human and Zarian standing together. Amanda took a deep breath and began speaking, telling Jara about the genetic changes and the pressure from both governments and her own struggle to understand what she wanted from her life. She admitted that she had feelings for Jara that went beyond friendship or political alliance, but that she was terrified of making such a massive life decision based on emotions that might be influenced by the prophecy or the genetic modifications. Jara listened without interrupting, and her skin shifted through several colors reflecting the complexity of her own emotions. When Amanda finished, Jara stepped closer and took both of Amanda's hands in her own. She said that she had similar fears about whether her feelings were genuine or just a response to the prophecy. She had consulted with healers and scholars and advisors, and all of them said the same thing: that prophecy could not create love, only circumstances where love might develop. Jara said that she believed her feelings for Amanda were real because they had grown over time through shared experiences and conversations and quiet moments in the garden. She said she loved the way Amanda laughed at Zarion jokes even when she did not fully understand them, and the way she asked endless questions about everything, and the way she treated even the lowest palace servant with kindness and respect. These were not things the prophecy had predicted or that genetic compatibility could explain. Amanda felt tears forming in her eyes as she listened to Jara speak. The queen continued saying that she would never ask Amanda to give up her home and her people just to fulfill political expectations or ancient predictions. She said that if Amanda decided to return to Earth, she would understand and would cherish the time they had spent together. But if Amanda chose to stay, it should be because she wanted to build a life with Jara, not because of duty or prophecy. Amanda realized in that moment that she already knew what she wanted. She had known for weeks but had been too afraid to admit it to herself. She wanted to stay on Zarion with Jara and see where their relationship could go without the weight of prophecy hanging over them. She wanted to wake up every morning to orange skies and purple sand and the sound of silver leaves chiming in the breeze. She wanted to continue learning this alien language and culture and building bridges between humans and Zarions. She told Jara all of this in a rush of words, and Jara's skin blazed bright gold with joy. The queen pulled Amanda into an embrace, and Amanda discovered that Zarions were very warm and smelled faintly of spices, and that being held by someone 8 feet tall felt surprisingly safe and comfortable. They stood together for a long time, just holding each other while the ancient texts glowed on the walls around them. When they finally separated, Jara said they should tell the councils about Amanda's decision before rumors started spreading. Amanda agreed, and they walked back up to the palace hand in hand, ready to face whatever political complications would come from a human diplomat choosing to stay permanently with the Zarian queen. Amanda knew there would be challenges ahead, but for the first time in months she felt certain she was making the right choice. The announcement of Amanda's decision to stay permanently on Zarion created waves of reaction across both planets that took weeks to settle. On Earth, some politicians questioned whether Amanda was acting in humanity's best interests, while others praised her commitment to the Alliance. News outlets ran endless stories, speculating about the relationship between the human diplomat and the alien queen, and Amanda's family struggled to understand why she would choose to live so far away from everything familiar. Amanda spoke with her parents through video communication and tried to explain what she had found on Zarion. Her mother cried and said she was losing her daughter to another world, while her father asked practical questions about whether Amanda would ever be able to visit Earth again. Amanda assured them that travel between the planets would become easier once the alliance was fully established, and that she would visit as often as possible. She did not mention the genetic changes that were making her more Zarion with each passing month. On Zarion, the reaction was equally mixed but ultimately more positive. The common people seemed excited that the prophecy was unfolding before their eyes, and viewed Amanda's choice as proof that humans and Zarians could truly become one people. The nobility were more cautious, and some openly questioned whether a human could ever be accepted as part of the royal family. The council scheduled multiple meetings to discuss the implications and what traditions might need to change to accommodate this unprecedented situation. Jara handled the political pressure with grace and firmness, making it clear that she valued the council's input but would make her own decisions about her personal life. She reminded them that she was queen, and that the royal line had survived for 5,000 years by adapting to changing circumstances. Amanda attended some of these council meetings and watched Jara navigate complex political dynamics with skill that impressed even the most skeptical nobles. The relationship between Amanda and Jara deepened during this time as they faced the external pressure together. They spent evenings in Jara's private chambers talking about their hopes and fears for the future. Jara taught Amanda about Zarian courtship rituals, which involved elaborate gift-giving and poetry composition, and demonstrations of skill in arts or athletics. Amanda laughed and said humans had much simpler dating customs, but she was willing to learn the Zarian ways. Jara gave Amanda a bracelet made from living metal that shifted colors to match Amanda's moods, and Amanda spent weeks composing a poem in Zarian that made Jara laugh with delight when she finally recited it. The poem had grammatical errors and awkward word choices, but Jara said the sincerity behind it mattered more than perfect execution. They began appearing together at public events as a couple, and the Zarion people gradually accepted seeing their queen with a human partner. Linda and the diplomatic team stayed on Zarion for 3 more months, finalizing trade agreements and cultural exchange programs. Linda took Amanda aside before departing and said that Earth Command wanted Amanda to serve as the permanent human ambassador to Zarion, given her unique position and relationship with the Queen. Amanda accepted the role and felt grateful that she could serve both her people and her personal happiness at the same time. The formal ceremony, naming Amanda as Earth's ambassador to Zarion, took place in the throne room with both human and Zarion officials present. Amanda wore a specially designed uniform that incorporated elements of both human and Zarion formal dress, and spoke in both languages as she took her oath of office. Jara beamed with pride throughout the ceremony, and her skin glowed, golden rose reflecting her emotions. After the human diplomatic team departed, Amanda settled into her new dual role as ambassador and queen's consort. She maintained an office in the palace where she handled diplomatic correspondence and met with human visitors who came to Zarion for business or research. She also accompanied Jara on official visits to other Zarion cities and learned about the diverse regions and cultures that made up the planet's population. They visited the coastal cities where Zarions who had adapted to marine environments lived in floating structures and harvested food from the silver oceans. They traveled to the northern territories where the sand was white instead of purple, and ancient ruins from pre-unification times still stood. They toured the industrial centers where Zarion engineers were working to understand and reproduce human technology so the two species could collaborate on new innovations. Amanda found these trips exhausting but fascinating, and she filled notebooks with observations about Zarion society. She noticed that despite their long lifespans, Zarions approached life with curiosity and enthusiasm that rivaled any human child. They loved learning new things and experiencing new sensations, and many Zarions asked Amanda endless questions about Earth and human culture. Some young Zarions had started studying human languages and wearing clothing inspired by human fashion, creating a blend of styles that was uniquely their own. The question of producing an heir came up again 6 months after Amanda's decision to stay. The council approached Jara requesting that she and Amanda consult with the royal physicians about the possibility of having a child together. Jara was reluctant to put pressure on Amanda, but agreed to at least have the conversation. She sat down with Amanda one evening and carefully brought up the topic, explaining what the council was asking. Amanda had known this moment would come, but still felt nervous about discussing something so personal and consequential. She asked Jara what she wanted regardless of political pressure, and Jara admitted that she did want children someday, but only if Amanda wanted them too. She said she could not imagine raising a child with anyone else, but would accept a future without children if that was what Amanda preferred. They decided together to meet with the royal physicians and get accurate information about what would be involved before making any decisions. The physicians explained that while Amanda's genetic modifications made reproduction theoretically possible, there were still many unknowns. No human and Zarion had ever attempted to have a child together, and the pregnancy would likely be complicated, requiring careful monitoring and possibly medical intervention. The physicians also explained that any child would be a true hybrid with genetics from both species and might have characteristics that neither parent expected. The child might look more human or more Zarion or be an equal blend of both. They would need to develop new medical protocols, and Amanda would be pioneering a completely new type of reproduction that could have implications for the future of both species. Amanda asked for time to think about it, and the physicians agreed, saying this was not a decision to be made quickly. She and Jara talked about it over several weeks, discussing what kind of parents they wanted to be and what kind of life they could give a child. Amanda worried about bringing a child into a situation where they would face scrutiny and pressure from birth. But Jara pointed out that any royal child faced those challenges regardless of their parentage. What finally made Amanda comfortable with the idea was realizing that she genuinely wanted to build a family with Jara, not because of the prophecy or political necessity, but because she loved Jara and could imagine a future filled With the chaos and joy of raising children together, she had never felt that certainty with any previous partner, and she recognized it as something precious and rare. They told the physicians they were willing to try, and the medical team began running tests and developing protocols. The process was slower than anyone expected because they were literally inventing new medical procedures as they went. Amanda had to undergo treatments to fully activate the fertility aspects of her genetic modifications, and Jara worked with healers to prepare her body for the emotional bonding that would trigger her own fertility cycle. During this time, Amanda and Jara grew even closer as they supported each other. Through the medical procedures and the continued political pressure, they took refuge in small moments of normalcy, like walking through the garden at sunset or sharing quiet meals in Jara's chambers. Amanda taught Jara how to play chess using a set her parents had sent from Earth, and Jara taught Amanda a complex Zarion strategy game that took weeks to master. Kira became an invaluable support system during this period, helping Amanda navigate the cultural expectations around Zarion family formation and pregnancy. She explained that Zarion pregnancies typically lasted about 14 months, and that extended family groups shared childcare responsibilities. She also warned Amanda that Zarion children developed faster than human children and had abilities like color-changing skin from birth that might be startling to human sensibilities. 8 months after they began the process, the physicians confirmed that Amanda was pregnant. The news spread through the palace within hours and reached both planets by the end of the day. Earth sent congratulations along with concerns about Amanda's health and safety. Zarion celebrated with planet-wide festivals marking the fulfillment of the ancient prophecy. Amanda felt overwhelmed by the attention, but also deeply happy as she and Jara held each other and contemplated becoming parents together. The pregnancy was unlike anything the Zarion physicians or human doctors had ever encountered before, and Amanda became the subject of intense medical interest from both species. A team of human medical specialists traveled to Zarion to monitor her condition and collaborate with the Zarion healers who had centuries of experience with their own biology. Together, they documented every aspect of the pregnancy, knowing that this information would be crucial for any future human Zarion couples. Amanda experienced symptoms from both species, morning sickness that was worse than typical human pregnancy, combined with the Zarion tendency for skin sensitivity and color changes. Her skin did not change colors like Jara's, but it became more reactive to temperature and light, requiring her to adjust her clothing and daily routine. She tired easily in the first trimester, but Jara was attentive and caring, making sure Amanda rested and ate properly and did not overwork herself with diplomatic duties. The palace staff treated Amanda with gentle reverence once her pregnancy became obvious, and servants would appear with cushions and drinks and snacks whenever she sat down anywhere. Kira joked that Amanda was experiencing the full royal treatment that Zarion queens received during pregnancy, and that she should enjoy being pampered while it lasted. Amanda appreciated the care, but sometimes felt smothered by the constant attention and would escape to the garden for moments of peace. Jara was both excited and terrified about becoming a parent, and would often place her hand on Amanda's growing belly, feeling for movement. The physicians said the baby was developing normally by hybrid standards, showing characteristics of both species in the scans. The child had a skeletal structure similar to humans, but with some Zarion features like elongated fingers and a slightly larger skull. They could not yet determine if the child would have color-changing skin or what color their eyes would be. Amanda's family visited from Earth when she was 5 months pregnant, and seeing them on Zarion felt surreal. Her mother cried when she saw Amanda's rounded belly and felt the baby kick for the first time. Her father was uncomfortable at first meeting Jara face to face, but gradually relaxed as they talked about parenthood and family. Jara charmed them with her genuine interest in human grandparent traditions and her obvious love for Amanda. The visit helped Amanda's parents understand why she had chosen to stay on Zarion, and they returned to Earth with a better appreciation for the life she was building. Her mother promised to return for the birth and bring family heirlooms that had been passed down through generations. Amanda felt grateful for their acceptance, even though she knew they still worried about her living so far from home. The second trimester brought more energy, and Amanda resumed more of her diplomatic duties while her body allowed. She hosted visiting, human delegations and helped negotiate expanded trade agreements and reviewed proposals for joint research projects. The alliance between Earth and Zarian was growing stronger and more complex with each passing month, and Amanda took pride in her role facilitating understanding between the species. She also worked with Zarian educators to develop cultural exchange, programs that would allow human students to study on Zarion and Zarion youth to visit Earth. The first group of exchange students arrived when Amanda was 7 months pregnant, and she gave them a tour of the palace and shared her own experiences adapting to life on an alien world. The students, both human and Zarion, were excited about the opportunities opening up for their generation. As the pregnancy progressed, Amanda spent more time in the royal nursery that was being prepared for the baby. The room was decorated in colors from both worlds, blue and green from Earth combined with purple and silver from Zarion. Gifts arrived daily from well-wishers across both planets, and Amanda and Jara sorted through tiny clothes and toys and equipment, trying to decide what they would actually need. Jara's protective instincts intensified in the third trimester, and she rarely left Amanda's side for long periods. The council complained that the Queen was neglecting state business, but Jara made it clear that her family took priority and delegated more responsibilities to trusted advisors. Amanda appreciated Jara's devotion, but sometimes had to remind her that pregnancy was not an illness and that she could still function independently. The medical team grew concerned as Amanda approached the projected delivery date because they were not certain how long the pregnancy should last. Human pregnancies averaged 9 months, while Zarian pregnancies lasted 14 months, and the hybrid pregnancy seemed to be following a timeline somewhere in between. They monitored Amanda, constantly looking for signs that labor might begin, and prepared backup plans for various scenarios. Amanda went into labor unexpectedly at 11 months pregnant, while she and Jara were having breakfast in the private dining room. The contractions started suddenly and intensely, and Amanda barely had time to register what was happening before Jara was calling for the medical team. They rushed Amanda to the birthing suite that had been prepared with equipment from both planets, and a full team of physicians and healers standing by. The labor was long and difficult, lasting nearly 20 hours, as Amanda's body worked to deliver a child that was slightly larger than a typical human baby. Jara stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand and offering encouragement and refusing to leave, even when the physician suggested she might want to rest. Amanda drew strength from Jara's presence and the certainty in those golden eyes that everything would be all right. Finally, after what felt like forever, Amanda heard the sound she had been waiting for, a baby crying with a voice that was higher pitched than a human infant, but not quite like a Zarian newborn. The physicians lifted the baby and placed her on Amanda's chest, and Amanda looked down at her daughter with tears streaming down her face. The baby had skin that was shifting through pale colors from pink to lavender and back again, and her eyes, when they opened, were a striking shade of amber. Jara leaned over to look at their daughter, and her skin blazed gold, brighter than Amanda had ever seen it. She touched the baby's tiny hand with one long finger, and the infant grasped it with surprising strength. The physicians declared mother and baby healthy and left them alone for a few minutes to bond as a family. Amanda held her daughter close, feeling the weight of her and the warmth and the reality that she and Jara had created this new life together. They named the baby Maya after Amanda's grandmother Angira, which was a traditional Zarian name meaning new beginning. Maya Jira was perfect and beautiful, and completely unique, the first human Zarian hybrid ever born. News of her birth spread across both planets within hours, and celebrations erupted in cities on Zarion and Earth. The prophecy had been fulfilled in the most literal way possible through the birth of a child who belonged to both species equally. The first weeks with Maya were exhausting, as Amanda and Jara learned how to care for a hybrid infant whose needs did not quite match either species' normal patterns. Maya nursed like a human baby, but needed supplements that Zarian physicians prepared to support her unique metabolism. Her skin colors changed rapidly in response to her emotions, just like Jara's, and Amanda had to learn to read those color shifts to understand what Maya needed. Kira and other members of the extended family group helped with childcare following Zarian traditions of communal parenting. Amanda initially struggled with having so many people involved in raising Maya, but gradually came to appreciate the support system. She could rest knowing that trusted friends were watching over her daughter, and Maya benefited from being exposed to multiple caregivers and learning styles. Amanda's mother returned to Zarion when Maya was 2 months old and stayed for several weeks helping with the baby, and marveling at her hybrid granddaughter. She taught Jara traditional Earth lullabies and showed her how to swaddle the baby in ways that human infants found comforting. Jara absorbed everything, eagerly wanting to give Maya connections to both sides of her heritage. As Maya grew, it became clear that she would be a bridge between species in ways even more profound than Amanda had been. She responded to both human and Zarian language from birth, and seemed equally comfortable with people from either planet. Her unique appearance with features from both species made her instantly recognizable, and she became a symbol of hope for the Alliance. Amanda watched her daughter and thought about how far she had come from that first day stepping off the transport ship onto purple sand. She had found love and purpose and family on an alien world and helped create a future where humans and Zarians could truly become one people. The Ancient Ones had planned this meeting across thousands of years, and now their plan was bearing fruit in the form of a tiny child with color-changing skin and amber eyes. Jara came to stand beside Amanda as they watched Maya sleeping in her crib. The Queen wrapped her arm around Amanda's shoulders and pulled her close. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching their daughter breathe and occasionally shift colors in her sleep. Amanda knew there would be challenges ahead as Maya grew and faced the expectations and scrutiny that came with being the fulfillment of prophecy. But she also knew that Maya would have the love and support of 2 planets and 2 mothers, who would do anything to protect her and help her find her own path.